Hey, everybody, welcome back. To those of you new to the channel, I want to extend a welcome to you and to all the returning subscribers. It's good to see everybody again. I'm sure many of you have noticed over the last several years, and we cover this a lot on this channel, something big seems like it's on the horizon. Something big seems like it's coming. And we are all seeing the markers and the indicators of this in pretty much everything that's happening. We've talked about AI replacing jobs. We've talked about CEOs of big companies and corporations celebrating the fact that they are letting people go in record numbers. In one of my later videos, one of my more recent videos, we talk about over 14 million job losses here in the United States. Earlier today, I was literally watching video of one of the most recent videos that I've been watching of this, Atlanta, Georgia. People parked near gas stations, lined up, living in their cars, sleeping in their cars. And these cars are, decent looking cars. These people, many of them are actually employed, but homeless nonetheless. Employed, but homeless. And I want you to just let that sink in for a minute. We now have an epidemic of people that are, many of them still employed, but homeless. And this is one of many videos that I've now seen of different cities here in the United States. And, I'm not sure exactly like Canada, other Western countries, but I keep stumbling across this as I do research and looking into everything. All these people that are employed but homeless. So not only have we got a job loss epidemic, we've got an epidemic of people not making enough money to do anything but live inside of their vehicle and park at a gas station. And that is now their proverbial home. And it gives real insight into the direction of everything. So what is the end game here? CEOs celebrating the fact that they are cutting loose at people. They're now making record profits based upon the fact that anybody that is left is now being overworked. Any management that's left is being completely inundated with more than they can possibly handle and just being run into the ground. And anybody that raises a voice about it or says anything about it, they get let go. And they're looking to let go even of people that have been working in high performance employees for years and years. I'm reading about people that have been incredibly effective at their job and made record profits for companies being let go. So this has nothing to do really with whether or not you're particularly good at your job. In fact, if you have more experience, more years of serving a company and helping them to achieve record profits, oftentimes at this point, you end up the first person on the chopping block because the way they view making money back is by getting rid of your high end salary. So, where does that leave us all? What is the ultimate end game of all of this? Now, we've talked about this term, the working poor, before here on this channel. I know other people have mentioned it on other YouTube channels and other places where they cover this sorts of thing. And it is a very, very real possibility that that is where everything is going. And as we talk about the reality of people living in their cars, but somehow they're still employed, they should be making enough money to be able to live. And there are people that still, for some mind numbing reason, defend the CEOs that are that are multi-millionaires and billionaires at this point, and they're making record profits, but somehow can't afford to pay livable wages. But they defend them and they come down on the people that live in their vehicles, like somehow they're not doing enough. Come down on the people that are receiving SNAP benefits but have full-time jobs and not realizing somehow it's not dawning on them that the companies that are not paying enough to do all of this are leveraging against the United States taxpayer that we are going to cover the difference. Those people are able to live a livable wage in a sense, but it's getting subsidized by taxpayers. Think about that for just a minute. Those companies are not mistreating people just lightly. They're not just doing this just lightly. They know that they have an arrangement basically with the government that what's left over is going to be covered by all of the rest of us. That is one of multiple different ways that they are absolutely making bank because they know that we will cover the difference. They know that many people will just end up living in their cars and not doing anything about it. So, where do we all end up at the end of all of this? What do we do about it? For those of us that are hoping to survive this in some way, shape, or form, many of us are figuring out that we need to appreciate and understand the things that we do have. And what I mean by that is shifting our mindset, not looking at the situation as, I need to have some huge house somewhere. Because I myself, I mean, I live in a cabin that I've designed and built myself, but I used to live in a much bigger home. I used to have a whole lot more debt, a whole lot more overhead. I used to live to some degree keeping up with the Joneses, if you will, just attempting to keep basically a certain look and a certain standard of living that I thought I needed to have. And having gotten rid of that and shifted my life significantly has allowed me to escape a lot of it. But no matter what any of us do, we're not going to completely escape any of this because, as I said, people that are employed living in their cars. And there's not really an opportunity. I mean, if you're going to be realistic, are you going to be able to buy a piece of land, put a tiny home on it, have it be completely legal to where they're not going to give you any you know, trouble or problems or repercussions for that? They're never going to allow that to start to completely take root because it would upend and change the housing industry and make a starting point, an entry point much lower than the current one that's there and allow a lot of people to escape rent traps and allow a lot of people financial freedom and to be able to save money. They are never going to allow that to take hold. And what I mean by never them, I'm talking about the government, local authorities, state governments, everybody that has any level of authority has been compromised by the industry and compromised by private equity that wants to make sure that no more affordable option ever comes onto the market. And if you don't think so, you go ahead and try to put together some form of a community on a piece of property made of tiny homes that would begin to reverse the trend and make home ownership more affordable and give you an entry point to where you could eventually build up and buy a nicer home, a bigger home somewhere. Go ahead and try and do that. This experiment has been done many times, multiple different states across the United States. Every single time, somehow, some way, somebody comes in and figures out a way to shut it down. It almost never stays the way that it is. In places where it has, so many restrictions have been put on it that it's never going to expand to become something that is an affordable option. So, one of the things that we can do is learn to separate ourselves as far as our mindset is concerned from trying to keep up with some sort of standard, from trying to hang on to a world that doesn't exist anymore for most of us. The way our parents grew up and grandparents grew up and the way that the finances were back then are completely different. And the way life was and what was available, what the dollar could afford you. The dollar has lost so much of its value. And I've mentioned this before, and it still holds true. The dollar has lost so much of its value that what you could buy in the 1970s, you'd have to make somewhere between $70 and $80 an hour to have that same purchasing power today. And that is something that It is absolutely mind blowing when you think about it, but it gives you real perspective on where we actually stand today. Part of surviving this is adjusting your mindset to realize we're not in the same time as our parents or our grandparents. We don't face the same problems. It's much worse. And to get through all of this, we have to begin to adjust our mindset and realize everything has not only gotten worse, but to a certain degree, a level of collapse has to happen for things to begin to even go back the right direction. Well, that's pretty much all I've got for today. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, what you think about this. As always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so anytime I put up a video, you can jump right on it and let me know what you think about that. I'm also going to put a link in the description if you want to join us in the community over on the school platform. And I look forward to talking to you all again soon.